The wind whipping around the steps of City Hall had a bite to it. I pulled my thin jacket tighter, my eyes fixed on the woman in front of me, Audrey Thorne, the woman who had once been the center of my universe. Today, she was dressed in a sharp, black power suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her lips were crimson, her gaze as cold as ice. "Just sign it, Leo." She slid a document across the small table. I recognized the smooth, heavy paper of her corporate law firm. The divorce papers. I'd already read them 3 times. Her nails, I noticed, were perfectly manicured, coated in a subtle, expensive-looking nude polish. I took the document, my fingers brushing hers. Her skin was as cold as her expression. She snatched her hand back, as if I were some kind of contagion. "In a hurry, Audrey." I fought to keep my voice steady, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. Couldn't even wait out the final day. Audrey's brow furrowed. I used to think that expression was cute. Now it was just another twist of the knife. "Leo, we agreed. Today was the deadline. Julian has been waiting for me for 3 years. I won't make him wait another minute." I glanced over her shoulder at the man standing behind her, Julian Croft, her college sweetheart, the legendary one that got away. He was decked out in a bespoke suit, a designer watch flashing in the pale sunlight. He was sizing me up with an undisguised look of superiority, a faint, condescending smirk playing on his lips. He waited 3 years. What's one more day? I murmured, more to myself than to her. "Don't be like this, Leo." Audrey's voice softened for a fraction of a second before hardening again into her usual businesslike tone. "You know our marriage was a means to an end. If the company hadn't been in crisis, if my father hadn't insisted. He insisted because he knew I was the only one who could help you." I cut in, my voice quiet but firm. Julian scoffed. "Give me a break. Thorne Industries is where it is today because of Audrey's talent and my resources. What could you possibly contribute? You're a stay-at-home husband who doesn't even have a real job." I looked at Audrey, waiting for her to say something, anything, even a half-hearted defense. But she just turned her head, avoiding my gaze. The memory of 3 years ago flooded my mind. Audrey had just taken over the family business, and the company was facing a catastrophic financial crisis. It was me who used my old college network to connect her with the key investors. It was me who stayed up all night rewriting her business plan, pointing out the fatal flaws in its logic. It was me who prepped her before every major negotiation, analyzing her opponent's strategies and mapping out her responses. But she seemed to have forgotten all of that. "Pen," I said, holding out my hand. Audrey hesitated, then pulled a Montblanc fountain pen from her purse, the one I gave her for her birthday last year. I took it and signed my name on the final page. Each stroke was heavy, forceful, nearly tearing through the paper. "Leo," Audrey began, her voice trembling slightly. "For the last 3 years, thank you for—" "Don't," I said, handing the papers back to her. "Be happy." I turned and walked away without looking back. The autumn wind swirled fallen leaves around my feet. Julian's voice drifted after me, carried on the breeze. "Finally got rid of that dead weight, babe. Let's go celebrate tonight." My fingernails dug into my palms, but I didn't break my stride. For 3 years, I had lived in Audrey's shadow. To the outside world, I was a trophy husband, a pretty face who'd married into money. No one knew how many of Thorne Industries' key decisions had come from my mind. Now it was over. I stood at a crosswalk, watching the red light turn green. The crowd surged forward like tide. This time, I was going to live for myself. The key jammed in the lock, as usual. I had to jiggle it 3 times before the deadbolt finally gave way. My landlord had been promising to fix it for 6 months. I pushed the door open, and a musty smell hit me in the face. This was my home now, a cramped, 300-square-foot studio in a run-down part of Oakland. The walls were stained, and the bathroom was so small you could barely turn around in it. Compared to Audrey's 2,000-square-foot penthouse overlooking the San Francisco Bay, this was a slum. I dropped my duffel bag, which held only a few changes of clothes and my personal effects. According to the divorce settlement, Audrey got most of the assets. I didn't fight for them. It wasn't that I didn't care about money. I just didn't want anything connecting me to her anymore. Rain began to fall, drumming a maddening rhythm on the rusty air conditioning unit outside the window. I sat on a creaky folding chair, staring at a water stain on the wall. It looked like a broken heart. My phone buzzed. A message from Audrey. An iMessage. Our housekeeper packed up that box of your business books. When are you coming to get them? I stared at the screen for a moment, then deleted the message. Those books had been my treasure, their margins filled with my notes. But now, like our marriage, they belong to the past. The fridge held half a bottle of water and an expired yogurt. I chugged the water and opened my laptop to work on my resume. The screen's glare was harsh in the dim room. For 3 years, I had existed as a stay-at-home husband, nominally Audrey's personal consultant, which was a title that came with no salary. Now, at 30, re-entering the job market with a 3-year gap on my resume was professional suicide. As I stared blankly at the work experience section, my phone rang again. An unknown number. "Hello, is this Leo Vance?" A cheerful voice asked. "Speaking." "Leo, it's Mike Chun. You remember me. University of Stanford. I was your roommate freshman year." Mike Chun, an image of a lanky guy in a plaid shirt, a genius from the computer science department, flashed in my mind. We hadn't spoken since graduation. "Of course, I remember," I said, trying to sound less exhausted than I felt. "What's up? It's been a while. I saw you on Bloomberg yesterday. It was just a shot of your back outside City Hall, but I recognized you immediately." Mike's tone suddenly became cautious. "Hey man, I heard about you and Audrey." I gripped the phone tighter. The divorce was barely a day old, and it was already news. Audrey was a prominent figure in the business world. I was a nobody. The media wouldn't pass up that kind of gossip. "So, you're calling to offer condolences?" I asked with a bitter laugh. "Condolences? Hell no." Mike's voice boomed. "I'm calling to poach you. I heard you're a free agent now, and I've got a position that was made for you." I was stunned. "What position?" "Chief Technology Officer." Me and a few buddies started a company, an AI medical diagnostics platform. The tech is solid, but our business strategy is a total mess. You were always a wizard at this stuff. That business plan you helped me with back in college. The professor said it was flawless. Memories rushed back. In college, I had helped dozens of classmates refine their business plans. A few of them even got seed funding because of it. I couldn't believe Mike still remembered after all these years. "I'm not." I looked down at my wrinkled shirt. "I'm probably not as sharp as you remember." "Cut the crap," Mike said, cutting me off. "Be at our office tomorrow at 10. Bring your brain. I'm sending you the address. If you don't show, you're disrespecting our friendship." He hung up. A second later, a location pin dropped into my messages. I stared at the unfamiliar address in Mountain View, a warmth I hadn't felt in years spreading through my chest. Outside, the rain had stopped. A sliver of evening sun slanted through the grimy window, illuminating a box of unopened cup noodles on the counter. Suddenly, I felt like maybe, just maybe, fate had given me a second chance. The next morning, I dug out my only decent suit and took the Caltrain to the address Mike had sent. It was a shared office space in a Silicon Valley tech park, much more legitimate than I'd expected. "Now," a man in a faded t-shirt waved at me. I had to look closely to recognize Mike. He'd put on some weight, and his hair was thinning, but his grin was as wide as ever. He gave me a tour of the company, which was really just half of an open-plan office where 6 or 7 young people were glued to their computers. A stack of humming servers sat in a corner. "So, this is it," Mike said, rubbing his hands together. "We've developed an AI medical imaging diagnostic system. Our accuracy rate is 15% higher than anything else on the market, but we've been pitching for 3 months and haven't found a single investor." "Do you have clinical trial data?" I asked, picking up a product brochure from a desk. "We do. Test reports from 3 top-tier teaching hospitals." Mike eagerly handed me a folder. "But the VCs don't understand the technical specs. All they ask is about the timeline to profitability." I scanned the documents, the technical jargon and data automatically translating into commercial value in my mind. Even though I hadn't held a formal job, I'd kept up with the medical tech sector for years, partly because Thorne Industries had a related division. "Your pricing model is wrong," I said, pointing to a line of figures. "Selling the system directly to hospitals means a slow return on investment. You should be using a SaaS model, charging per use. And you can partner with insurance companies, pitching the system as a tool to reduce their claim risks." Mike's eyes widened. "Holy crap. How did you come up with that?" "We've been stuck on that for 2 months. "Because you're too focused on the tech," I said, putting the folder down. "The market doesn't need technical specs. It needs solutions." You're hired. Mike slammed his hand on the table. $200,000 a year, 5% stock options. You in? The salary was lower than I'd hoped, but I needed a chance to prove myself more than I needed the money. Deal. It was evening by the time I signed the contract. As I walked out of the tech park, the giant screen in a nearby commercial plaza was broadcasting a business news segment. Audrey, in a stunning red dress, appeared on screen, standing next to a dapper Julian Croft. The headline blared. Thorne Industries CEO Audrey Thorne announces new romance. Joins forces with college sweetheart. I stopped, looking up at the screen, at the woman I had once loved so deeply. She was smiling brightly, her arm linked with Julian's, speaking confidently to the reporters. Julian has a decade of investment experience on Wall Street. His involvement will bring an international perspective to Thorne Industries. The screen's light reflected on my face. A passerby gave me a curious look, followed my gaze to the giant screen, and then shot me a look of dawning comprehension. In their eyes, I must have looked like some pathetic, lovesick fool, staring at a goddess who was completely out of my league. I turned and walked into the subway station. Back in my apartment, I turned on the TV and switched to the same business channel. Audrey's face appeared again, this time at a high-end charity gala. She was raising a glass of champagne, clinking it with Julian's. We expect to complete the merger by the first quarter of next year, Audrey said to the camera. Mr. Croft will be appointed Executive Vice President, in charge of international business development. The camera zoomed in on Julian. He smiled charmingly. I'm honored to join the Thorne family. Audrey and I are not just business partners, but also, he paused for effect, life partners. The host gushed. It seems we have a new corporate fairy tale in the making. I hit the power button on the remote, and the screen went black. The only sound in the room was the ticking of a cheap clock. I took out my new employee ID badge. It read, Nova Diagnostics, Leo Vance, CTO. I looked at it for a long time before carefully placing it in my wallet. Tomorrow, my new life began. #####. 3 The air in Nova Diagnostics' tiny conference room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Across the table, Mr. Henderson, the procurement director for Mercy General Hospital, was frowning as he flipped through our proposal, his eyes narrowed behind his glasses. This AI diagnostics system of yours, Henderson said, snapping the folder shut with a sharp crack. Why is it 20% more expensive than the one from Viridian Health? Beside me, Mike was sweating, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the table. This was the biggest potential client we'd ever had. Landing this account would put us on a map. Losing it could mean shutting our doors for good. Mr. Henderson, I said, leaning forward, my voice calm and steady. It's more expensive because our system will save you money. Henderson raised an eyebrow. Oh, and how is that? I turned my laptop toward him, pulling up a set of data. According to our algorithmic simulations, for every 100 lung nodule screenings, Viridian's system generates about 15 false positives. At an average follow-up cost of $2,000 per case. That's an extra $30,000 in expenses. Our system's false positive rate is only 5%, saving you $20,000. On that metric alone, you'd make up the price difference in 6 months. The room was silent for a few seconds. Henderson took off his glasses and wiped them on the hem of his shirt. Interesting. But Viridian has 3 years of clinical data to back them up. You've only been testing for a few months. How do I know you're reliable? We have 3 months of real-world data from 3 major university hospitals, I said, swiping the screen to show him the report. An accuracy rate of 96.7%, which is 11 percentage points higher than Viridian's. If you're willing to give us a 1-month trial, we'll provide free technical support and data analysis services. Under the table, Mike kicked me, his eyes wide with panic. I had just offered a service we hadn't planned for. I ignored him and kept my eyes on Henderson, a confident smile on my face. You've got guts, kid, Henderson finally said, a hint of a smile appearing on his face. All right, a 1-month trial it is. If it works out, we'll roll it out to all 5 of our branch hospitals. As we walked out of the hospital, Mike threw an arm around my neck. Leo, you're a damn wizard. How did you come up with that data? We didn't even prepare that analysis. I did my homework last night, I said, rubbing my tired eyes. I read their annual procurement report. Mercy General paid out over $800,000 in malpractice claims for imaging misdiagnoses last year. I figure Henderson had to be losing sleep over it. Fucking brilliant. Mike clapped me on the back. Come on, we have to celebrate tonight. I turned down Mike's offer for drinks and went back to the office to finalize the implementation plan. I was the only one left when my phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. Mr. Vance, I heard you landed the Mercy General account. Congratulations. Kevin Chun. It took me a moment to place the name. He was the IT engineer from Mercy General, the young guy who had been quiet throughout the meeting. How'd he get my number? And how'd he know already? We had just signed the letter of intent. I replied, thanks, but it's just a trial for now. And you are? My apologies. I'm Kevin Chun. I'm responsible for the hospital's information systems integration. Actually, I have a friend who works in the tech department at Thorne Industries. He's mentioned you before. My fingers hovered over the screen, a sudden tightness in my chest. Thorne Industries. Audrey's company. That's all in the past. I texted back, quickly changing the subject. Regarding the system integration, would next Monday afternoon work for a preliminary site survey at the hospital? It was after 10 p.m. By the time I finished my work, I stood by the window, stretching, looking out at the glittering lights of the tech park. 3 months ago, I was a stay-at-home husband who had been kicked to the curb. Now, I was leading my own team on a major project for a top-tier hospital. The sense of accomplishment was more intense than anything I'd felt helping Audrey close her big deals. This time, the credit and the glory was all mine. Meanwhile, the lights were still on in the CEO's office at Thorne Industries. Audrey stared at the quarterly report on her screen, her brow furrowed. Market share was down 2%, something that had never happened in the 3 years she'd been in charge. She picked up her phone, her thumb automatically swiping to Leo Vance in her contacts before freezing. The name on the screen stung her eyes. They had been divorced for 2 months. Audrey locked her phone and buzzed her assistant on the intercom. Is Julian still in the office? Mr. Croft left for the financial summit at 6. Ms. Thorne, her secretary replied. Audrey rubbed her temples. Since Julian had come on board, he seemed to have a networking event every night, while his actual work at the company was neglected. Last week, he had unilaterally decided to switch their main supply chain vendor. The first batch of raw materials had quality issues, forcing a 2-day shutdown of the production line. If it had been Leo, he would have done a thorough vendor assessment and had a backup plan ready. The thought popped into her head, unbidden and irritating. She opened a desk drawer and pulled out a tin of mints, Leo's favorite brand. She'd kept them on a whim when he left. There were only a few left. Popping a mint in her mouth, Audrey opened an email from the marketing department. It was a proposal for a new promotion. The more she read, the more dissatisfied she became. These tired, old discount strategies weren't going to solve their sales decline. Last year, at this exact time, Leo had suggested. She snapped her laptop shut, grabbed her coat, and left the office. As the elevator descended to the parking garage, her phone rang. It was Julian. Babe, the summit just wrapped up, but a few of the investors are insisting we go for drinks. Julian's voice was cheerful and slightly slurred. You go on home and get some rest. Don't wait up for me. There's a board meeting at 9 tomorrow morning. Don't forget to prepare the report on the Southern factory, Audrey said, trying to keep the irritation out of her voice. Relax, it's a piece of cake, Julian said airily. Oh, by the way, I just met a big shot from a major investment bank. He's very interested in our new project. I was thinking of bringing him by the office tomorrow to chat. Audrey gripped the steering wheel. What new project? Why don't I know about it? The overseas acquisition I mentioned. That German company. This guy, Mr. Wong, has strong connections in Frankfurt. He can open doors for us. Julian, Audrey's voice turned cold. The board hasn't even approved the feasibility study for that project. It's too reckless to be talking to investors already. Opportunity waits for no one, darling, Julian said, unconcerned. You're too conservative. On Wall Street, we secure the funding first, then we work out the details. Anyway, they're calling me. I'll see you tomorrow. He hung up. Audrey sat in her car, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. At times like this, Leo would have quietly handed her a mug of warm chamomile tea, listened to her vent about her work frustrations, and then offered a perfectly calibrated piece of advice. Now, All she had was an empty penthouse and a perpetually tipsy fiancé. The next morning, at the Nova Diagnostics team meeting, listen up, everyone. The Mercy General Project is our first major client. We have to be flawless, I told the team. Mike, you handle the technical integration. Kevin, you prepare the training materials. I'll take care of getting authorization for the insurance data interface. After the meeting, another text came from Kevin Chun at the hospital. Mr. Vance, forgive my forwardness, but do you have any expertise in medical data security and compliance? Our hospital's requirements are extremely strict. I replied, as a matter of fact, I do. The compliance framework for the HealthSync project that Thorne Industries acquired last year. I wrote it. I realized too late that I had mentioned Thorne again. Strangely, the mention didn't sting as much this time. It felt more like talking about a former employer. That's incredible. Could I pick your brain about it? Would you have time for coffee after work today? Kevin quickly replied. I hesitated for a moment, then agreed. The young engineer was clearly dedicated, and getting more insight into the hospital's needs would only help our project. That evening, at a coffee shop near the hospital, Kevin had arrived 10 minutes early and found a quiet corner. He looked to be in his late 20s, dressed in a simple plaid shirt with slightly messy hair. The quintessential tech guy. Mr. Vance, over here, he waved. As soon as I sat down, Kevin eagerly opened his laptop. This is our current data security architecture. I feel like there's a vulnerability somewhere, but I can't put my finger on it. I studied his diagram, and a few obvious flaws immediately jumped out at me. Here, the encryption level for patient privacy data is insufficient, and this external API needs an additional authentication gateway. We talked for nearly an hour, Kevin's eyes growing brighter with every suggestion I made. You're amazing. Our IT department discussed these points for weeks and never spotted them. Just experience, I smiled. I've dealt with similar cases before. Kevin closed his laptop and leaned in, lowering his voice. Mr. Vance, actually, there's something else I wanted to tell you today. What is it? Thorne Industries' HealthSync project is in trouble, Kevin said, his voice dropping to a whisper. My friend is a systems operator over there. He says the system has been crashing constantly, and their hospital clients are all complaining. I gripped my coffee cup. HealthSync was the project Audrey had pushed so hard for last year, acquiring it for a staggering $80 million. I had warned her at the time that the technical architecture was unstable, but she hadn't listened. How bad is it? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. I heard that their new VP, Julian Croft, insisted on replacing the original tech team with an outsourcing firm he knew. Turns out the new team has zero experience with medical systems. Kevin shook his head. Yesterday, one of the hospitals threatened to terminate their contract. I looked out at the night sky, a mix of emotions swirling within me. There was no pleasure in her misfortune, no sense of vindication, just a faint feeling of regret for the company I had once poured my heart into and for the mistakes that could have been avoided. Thanks for letting me know, I finally said, but that's not my concern anymore. As I left the coffee shop, a push notification for a business news alert popped up on my phone. Thorne Industries stock slides for third consecutive week. Analysts cite unclear strategy from new management. I swiped the notification away without opening it. My new chapter was just beginning. Hashtag for Leo. The feedback from the FDA just came in. Kevin, one of our junior engineers, burst into my office, waving a stack of papers. They said our algorithm's architecture is fully compliant. We just need to submit some supplementary clinical data to move to the formal approval stage. I took the documents, my eyes scanning the technical jargon and official language, finally landing on the conclusion. Demonstrates significant innovation and possesses clear clinical value. My hands trembled slightly. A preliminary nod from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration was a green light, a passport for our AI diagnostic system to enter the international market. Get the entire tech team in the conference room. Meeting in 1 hour, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. We need to start compiling that data immediately. Kevin nodded excitedly and ran out, nearly colliding with Mike, who was walking in. Leo. Mike closed the door, a grin plastered on his face. I just got off the phone. Westwind Ventures wants to invest $50 million Series A at a $300 million valuation. The number left me speechless. 3 months ago, We were worried about making next month's payroll. Now, our company was valued at $300 million. They were impressed by the FDA progress, Mike said, plopping himself down on the edge of my desk. But the real clincher was the operational data from Mercy General. That long-term tracking you insisted on doing, it was worth its weight in gold. The guys at Westwind said they've never seen such a clean set of clinical efficacy comparisons. I looked out the window at the bright California sun. The months of sleepless nights, the endless revisions, the all-nighters the team had pulled debugging the system. It was all worth it. By the way, Mike lowered his voice conspiratorially. Westwind specifically requested that you lead the pitch meeting next week. Their partner, a Mr. Chun, said, "That Leo Vance looks like a man who gets things done." I let out a small laugh. Once upon a time, in Audrey's eyes, I was just an accessory, a disposable part of her life. My phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. "Leo, it's Audrey. The HealthSync project has run into some problems. I wanted to ask for your advice on a few technical details. Please call me when you see this." I stared at the screen, momentarily dazed. It was the first time she had contacted me since the divorce. The HealthSync project. It seemed Kevin was right. The problem was serious enough for her to swallow her pride and ask her ex-husband for help. "What's up? Who's that?" Mike asked, trying to peek at my screen. I locked the phone. "Nothing. Spam." I tossed it into a drawer and picked up the FDA documents. "Come on, let's go share the good news with the team." The following week was a blur. I practically lived at the office, preparing for the pitch meeting, compiling the FDA submission, and onboarding new clients. The phone in my drawer vibrated a few more times, but I ignored it. Friday afternoon, at the Westwind Ventures pitch meeting, I stood in front of a large projection screen, facing more than 20 potential investors, confidently explaining our technology and market potential. I knew this presentation inside and out. In my 3 years with Audrey, I had watched her deliver countless brilliant speeches, learning exactly how to capture an investor's attention. Therefore, our system not only improves diagnostic accuracy, but can also save medical institutions up to 30% in costs associated with misdiagnosis, I said, clicking the remote to the next slide. Here is the data comparison for Mercy General's first 3 months of using our system. A slight commotion came from the back of the room. I looked up and saw a familiar figure slipping quietly into a seat in the far corner. Audrey. She was wearing a navy blue suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her eyes fixed on the presentation. Our gazes met for a brief second. She gave me a slight nod. I continued my presentation without missing a beat. What was she doing here? Thorne Industries had no investment interests in the AI medical field. After the presentation, I was swarmed by investors asking questions. By the time I managed to extricate myself, Audrey was gone. "Audrey Thorne was looking for you earlier." Mr. Chun, the partner from Westwind, said, handing me a business card. "She mentioned you two know each other." "Yeah, she's my ex-wife," I replied matter-of-factly. Mr. Chin's eyebrows shot up. "No kidding. She asked a lot of questions about you. Spoke very highly of you. That surprised me." In public, Audrey had always been stingy with any praise for me. "Her company's in a bit of trouble lately," Mr. Chin said, lowering his voice. "The HealthSync project imploded, and their stock has dropped nearly 30%. I hear the board is putting a lot of pressure on her." I offered a polite smile, but didn't comment. I'd heard about Audrey's troubles, but they were no longer my problem. Leaving the building, I ran into the last person I wanted to see, Julian Croft. He was hunched over his phone, snarling into it. "I don't care how you do it. Just shut that hospital up. Money is not an issue." He saw me and froze, quickly ending the call and plastering a fake smile on his face. "Well, if it isn't Leo Vance. I hear you're doing quite well for yourself these days." I ignored him and pressed the elevator button. "Did Audrey contact you?" he asked suddenly, his voice laced with suspicion. "She's been a little nostalgic lately." The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, I tossed back, "Don't worry. I'm not interested in other people's property." On the way back to the office, my phone rang again. It was her. "I'm downstairs from your office. Can we talk? Just 10 minutes. I hesitated, then replied, "Busy. Some other time." She texted back immediately. "It's important. It's about a system vulnerability in HealthSync. You're the only one who can fix it." I stared at the message for a long time, but didn't reply. She should have thought of this when she chose Julian. Besides, I had warned her about the flaws in HealthSync. It was her decision to use the incompetent outsourcing team Julian had recommended. Back at the office, Mike announced that Westwind Ventures had officially signed the deal. The team erupted in cheers. Looking at their happy, young faces, I felt a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in years. Here, no one looked down on me. My skills and my contributions were genuinely respected. Late that night, as I was leaving the office building, I was shocked to see Audrey's car still parked on the street. She was leaning against the door. The moment she saw me, she straightened up. "Leo," she called out as I tried to walk past. Just 5 minutes. Under the dim streetlight, the dark circles under her eyes were starkly visible. Her lips were chapped. She looked nothing like the perfectly polished woman I remembered. "The HealthSync project?" I asked, keeping my distance. "The entire system has collapsed. 3 hospitals have terminated their contracts." Audrey's voice was hoarse. "The outsourcing team vanished, and the original team refuses to touch the mess. And I know you warned me about the architecture." She took a deep breath. "You're the only one who can fix it now. Name your price. I'll pay 3 times the market rate for consulting." I shook my head. "It's not about the money. I have a non-compete agreement. I can't get involved in similar projects." Then, as a personal favor, not through the company, just private consulting, Audrey took a step closer. The faint scent of her perfume, the one I'd given her for her birthday, drifted over. "Leo, the company's survival is at stake." "Audrey," I said, looking directly into her eyes, "you should be talking to Julian about this. He is your fiancé and the executive vice president of the company, isn't he?" Her face went pale. He doesn't understand the technical details, but he understands how to fire a professional team and replace them with his incompetent cronies," I said with a cold laugh. "I'm sorry. I can't help you." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. "Leo, please." It was the first time I had ever heard her say the word please. The once high and mighty Audrey Thorne was now begging me for help. I should have felt a sense of satisfaction, but all I felt was a dull ache in my chest. "You're asking the wrong person," I said, gently pulling my arm free. "I suggest you contact CTI Solutions in the States. They specialize in system recovery. They're expensive, but they're efficient. I already contacted them. They said it would take 3 months to fix." "Then you'll have to wait 3 months," I said, pulling open the door of a taxi. "Goodbye, Audrey." As the car drove away, I could see her small, lonely figure standing under the streetlight in my rearview mirror. She looked so fragile, so unlike the formidable powerhouse who dominated boardrooms. The next day was an industry tech forum, and I was invited to speak as the CTO of Diagnostics. The audience was packed with industry professionals. My eyes immediately found Audrey in the front row. She was taking notes, nodding occasionally, as if our awkward encounter last night had never happened. My presentation was on secure architecture design for medical AI systems. Much of the content directly addressed the problems plaguing HealthSync. After my speech, the Q&A session was lively. "Mr. Vance," a familiar voice called out. Audrey stood up. "You mentioned the design of a multi-layer encryption gateway. If a system is already in use and experiencing compatibility issues, how would you implement this change without disrupting the hospital's daily operations?" The question went straight to the heart of HealthSync's problem. The entire room fell silent, waiting for my answer. I paused for a moment. In that situation, I would recommend running a shadow system in parallel. You deploy the repaired system on a new server and run it concurrently, mirroring the data. After confirming its stability for a couple of weeks, you can gradually migrate the traffic. It's more costly, but it minimizes clinical impact. Audrey's eyes lit up as she quickly jotted down my points. Her subsequent questions were all related to the HealthSync crisis, and I answered each one professionally, without a trace of personal emotion. After the forum, I was surrounded by people wanting to exchange business cards. By the time I broke free, I found Audrey waiting for me at the end of the hallway. "Thank you for your advice. It was very insightful," she said, handing me a cup of coffee. "Still black, no sugar, right?" I was taken aback. I couldn't believe she remembered how I took my coffee. I accepted the cup. "Leo, she started, then stopped at a loss for words. Finally, she just said, "Your presentation today was brilliant. I've never heard you talk about these technical topics before. Because you never asked. I replied quietly. In your eyes, I was just the husband who did the housework, wasn't I? Audrey opened her mouth as if to protest, but no words came out. Just then my phone rang. It was Mike. Now, get back to the office now. We just got formal approval from the FDA, and Providence Health Group wants to talk about a national partnership. His excited voice boomed through the phone. I'm on my way, I said, hanging up. I nodded at Audrey. Sorry, something urgent came up. Wait, Audrey said, pulling a small, elegant box from her bag. I forgot to return this to you. I opened the box. Inside was a pair of men's cufflinks, the gift she gave me for our first wedding anniversary. She had said at the time that she hoped they would one day match the success I would achieve in the business world. Keep them, I said, handing the box back to her. Consider it a souvenir. As I turned to leave, I heard her whisper, I'm sorry. I didn't look back. Some mistakes can't be fixed with a simple apology. The conference room at Providence Health Group was vast and bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city skyline. I adjusted my tie and connected my laptop to the projector. This was my first time leading a negotiation for a national partnership on my own. Mike had deliberately stayed behind, saying, It's time for you to take the lead. Mr. Vance, a pleasure to finally meet you. David Chun, the CEO of Providence, strode in, followed by a team of executives. That AI diagnostic system of yours. My daughter used it during her residency at Mercy General. She said it was more accurate than the senior specialists. I smiled and shook his hand, a wave of relief washing over me. This was a good sign. The presentation went off without a hitch. When I got to the slide showcasing a case study of our systems application in a remote, underserved area, Chin suddenly interrupted. Hold on, which hospital is that? A county hospital in rural Appalachia, I said, enlarging the image. They have very limited medical resources. Our system helped them increase their diagnostic imaging accuracy by 40% in just 3 months. Chun slammed his hand on the table. That's it. Providence has been searching for a solution for primary care in rural communities. He turned to his team. Draft a partnership proposal immediately. We'll start with a pilot program in 200 of our county-level hospitals in the Southeast. After the meeting, Chin asked me to stay behind. Mr. Vance, to be honest, we were previously considering Thorne Industries' HealthSync system. My fingers tightened on the edge of my folder. But their system is too complex and the maintenance costs are too high. It's not suitable for primary care facilities. Chin shook his head. And I hear they've been having some technical issues lately. Every system has its own strengths and applications, I said, maintaining a professional demeanor, refusing to kick an opponent when they were down. Chun gave me a long, meaningful look. Classy. By the way, we're hosting a medical tech investment summit next week. How would you like to be a keynote speaker and share your insights on the future of AI in primary care? I would be honored. Leaving the Providence building, the early summer sun felt warm on my shoulders. My phone buzzed with a message from Mike. How did it go? I just got wind that Providence's budget for this is in 8 figures. As I was about to reply, a call came in from an unknown number. May I speak with Mr. Leo Vance? A warm female voice asked. This is he. Who's calling? My name is Sophia Reed from Westwind Ventures. Mr. Chin suggested I contact you. He mentioned the Providence project might require some investment support services. I remembered then. Mr. Chin had said he would have someone follow up on the financing needs for the deal. Yes, we're in discussions now. Ms. Reed, what did you have in mind? Perhaps we could discuss it in person? Sophia's voice held a smile. I happen to have a meeting near your office this afternoon. Would you be free for coffee? 2 hours later, I met Sophia in the cafe on the ground floor of my office building. She was younger than I expected, probably in her late 20s, dressed in a simple but elegant beige pantsuit. She had shoulder-length hair and a small dimple that appeared in her cheek when she smiled. Mr. Vance, you have more presence in person than in your photos, she said, extending her hand with an easy confidence. I watched the video of your speech at the Medical Tech Forum. Your analysis of the multi-layer encryption architecture was brilliant. I was a bit surprised. They recorded that small forum? Internal industry materials, Sophia winked. Before I got into venture capital, my background was in computer science. I pay close attention to the technical details. The conversation that followed was incredibly smooth. Sophia not only understood the technology, but also had sharp insights into the medical market. We talked about the Providence deal, the application of AI in primary care, and even the latest trends in FDA approvals. Honestly, Sophia said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, I'm surprised you didn't stay at Thorne Industries. With your abilities, you could have thrived on a much larger platform. My hand stirring my coffee paused. You've done your research on me. It's a professional habit, she admitted without apology. Investing is about investing in people. I need to understand my partner's backgrounds. Then you know about me and Audrey. Sophia nodded. I do, but I also know who wrote the original technical proposal for the HealthSync project. She looked me directly in the eye. Losing you is Thorne Industries' biggest mistake. Her words were like a small hammer, gently striking a chord deep inside me. In 3 years of marriage, Audrey had never once acknowledged my professional capabilities. And now, a woman I had just met saw my value with perfect clarity. Thank you, I said, changing the subject. Regarding the capital structure for the Providence deal, I have some ideas. We talked until the cafe was closing. As we parted, Sophia handed me a tasteful business card that has my personal number on it. Feel free to contact me anytime. Back in the office, Mike sidled up to me conspiratorially. I hear you spent the afternoon with a beautiful venture capitalist from Westwind. We were just talking business, I said, pushing his curious face away. Yeah, right? Sophia Reed is a legend in the VC circle. She has suitors lined up from here to New York. I've never heard of her spending that much time with a client, Mike teased. But hey, you deserve it. You finally made it. You've got money. You've got fame. All you need now is a beautiful confidant. I ignored him and opened my laptop to check my emails. An industry newsletter was in my inbox. The headline read, Crisis at Thorne Industries. HealthSync project implodes. Stock plummets 35%. On a strange impulse, I clicked the link. The article featured a photo of Audrey at a press conference. She looked pale, but was trying to maintain her composure. Julian stood beside her, his face grim. The report stated that Thorne Industries was facing massive lawsuits and a crisis of confidence after the system's collapse had led to data loss at several hospitals. What are you looking at? Mike leaned over. Oh, Thorne. They had it coming. I heard that VP of theirs, Julian, doesn't know the first thing about tech. He drove away the entire core team. Serves them right. I closed the browser, a complicated mix of feelings churning in my stomach. The company I had poured my heart into was now in turmoil. It was a lie to say I didn't care, but I no longer had any right to intervene. I worked late until 9 that night. As I was leaving, the receptionist at the front desk called out to me. Mr. Vance, a package for you. It was a simple craft paper envelope with no return address. I opened it and froze. Inside was the complete set of technical documents for the HealthSync project, including the architectural diagrams I had drawn by hand years ago. Tucked into the last page was a sticky note. Can you take a look and see what went wrong? Any advice would be helpful. Hey, Audrey's initial. It was how she used to sign the notes she left for me when we were first married, a habit she had long since abandoned. I stuffed the documents back into the envelope and put them in my briefcase. Back at my apartment, I made a cup of coffee and, against my better judgment, opened the files. The problems were glaringly obvious. The outsourcing team Julian had hired had completely altered the original security architecture, deleting critical data backup modules and optimizing away the redundant designs, the very features that had ensured the system's reliability. I took out a red pen and began marking up the documents, pointing out the flaws and writing down suggestions for repairs. It was purely a professional reflex, like a doctor instinctively diagnosing a patient. By the time I finished, it was past 1 a.m. I stared at the pages covered in my annotations, debating whether to send them to her. In the end, I scanned the documents into a single PDF and sent it to her work email, with no message attached. After sending the email, I thought of what Sophia had said earlier. Investing is about investing in people. Years ago, Audrey had invested in Julian, a man who was all style and no substance. Now, she was paying the price. The next morning, I was jolted awake by my phone. It was the front desk from my office. Mr. Vance, there's a Ms. Thorne here to see you. She says she has an appointment. I frowned. I don't have an appointment with her. She said, It's about the file you sent last night. Audrey had come directly to my office. I glanced at the clock. It was only 7:30 a.m. Tell her I won't be in until 9. I took a cold shower and deliberately took my time with breakfast. If Audrey wanted to wait, she could wait. To my surprise, when I arrived at the office, Audrey wasn't in the lobby. The receptionist told me she was waiting in a car outside with a man. Through the glass doors, I saw Audrey's Mercedes parked across the street. Julian was in the passenger seat, and they appeared to be arguing. Audrey was speaking animatedly, while Julian waved his hand dismissively. Just as I was debating whether to go over, a taxi pulled up to the curb, and Sophia got out, holding a stack of files. "Leo, perfect timing," she smiled as she approached. "I worked through the night on the investment proposal for the Providence deal. I wanted to discuss it with you as soon as possible." Before I could respond, the door of the Mercedes flew open and Audrey strode toward us. She was wearing a black suit, her makeup immaculate, but unable to hide the dark circles under her eyes. "Leo," she said, stopping in front of me, her voice hoarse. "Thank you for the notes, but there are a few details I need to discuss with you in person." Sophia, sensing the tension, said quietly, "I'll go up and wait for you." Audrey's gaze shifted to Sophia, then back to me, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. "Ms. Thorne," I said in a professional tone, "I've provided my expert opinion. The actual implementation will have to be handled by your technical team." "We don't have a technical team," Audrey said, each word a strained whisper, her voice trembling. "Julian drove them all away. The system is crashing every hour, and the hospitals are threatening to sue." I looked across the street. Julian was leaning against the car, smoking, looking completely unconcerned. "That's a management problem," I said calmly. "I suggest you hire a professional team as soon as possible." "Leo," Audrey suddenly grabbed my arm. "I'm begging you. Help me one last time. For the sake of our 3 years of marriage." I gently pulled my arm free. "Ms. Thorne, we are divorced. You should be discussing these issues with your fiancé." "He's not." Audrey's words caught in her throat, her face turning ashen. Just then, Julian walked over, wrapping an arm around Audrey's waist. "Babe, how's it going?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with open hostility. "Mr. Vance, I've heard so much about you." I ignored him and said to Audrey, "I have a meeting with a client." "Excuse me." Sophia fell in a step beside me. As we entered the elevator, I saw through the glass doors that Julian was yelling at Audrey, whose expression shifted from shock to fury. "Was it your ex-wife?" Sophia asked quietly. I nodded, not wanting to elaborate. "She seems desperate," Sophia said, then paused. "But I understand your position. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed." The elevator doors opened, and we walked toward the conference room side by side. The faint scent of jasmine from Sophia's perfume seemed to calm my frayed nerves. "By the way," she said, turning to me with a bright smile, "I have 2 tickets to a classical music concert tomorrow night. A friend gave them to me. Are you interested? I hear you're a fan of Mozart." I looked at her, surprised. "How did you know that?" "It was in your background file." "You were in the University Music Society," Sophia winked. "When you invest in people, you have to be thorough." I couldn't help but smile. The feeling of being truly seen and understood was nice. "I'd be honored," I said. Hashtag 6 Mr. Vance, today's business journal. My secretary, Sarah, placed a newspaper on my desk, pointedly open to the business section. From stay-at-home husband to tech mogul. The rise of Nova Diagnostics. Leo Vance. The headline screamed at me. The accompanying photo was from my keynote speech at the Medical Tech Summit last week, showing me in a sharp suit, looking confident and composed. "The media loves to exaggerate," I said, pushing the paper aside. "It's not an exaggeration," Sarah said excitedly. "The rumor around the office is that you're being promoted to co-CEO next month." I smiled and sent her on her way, but I knew the rumor wasn't baseless. At yesterday's board meeting, Mike had indeed proposed creating a co-CEO position. The plan was for me to handle overall company operations while he focused on R&D. In just a few years, Nova Diagnostics had grown from a dozen people to nearly 200, and our valuation had skyrocketed. We needed a more robust management structure. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Saw the paper. Good photo. But you're even more handsome in person. Still on for the concert tonight? I replied, of course. I'll pick you up at 7. Since the Providence deal, Sophia and I had grown closer. Last week, she took me to a hidden jazz club in the city. This week, it was my turn to pick the venue. This easy, natural dynamic was a world away from the stressful, high-pressure marriage I'd had with Audrey. The office door burst open and Mike rushed in, frantic as usual. Leo, big news. Thorne Industries' health sync project is officially dead. They announced they're shutting it down this morning. My hand, holding a pen, paused. An official announcement. More than that. Mike pulled out his phone. Bloomberg flash news. Thorne stock opened down 8%, a 5-year low. I hear the board is holding an emergency meeting. Someone proposed ousting Audrey. The stark, objective text on the screen read, Thorne Industries, ticker, TRN, announced this morning the termination of its health sync project, anticipating a loss of $320 million. The market reacted strongly, with the stock plunging at open. Sources indicate the board is questioning management's competence, with personnel changes possible. I handed the phone back to Mike. Business decisions are a gamble. You win some, you lose some. Oh, come on. Mike leaned closer. Don't you feel even a little bit of ex-husband's revenge satisfaction? She dumped you for that Julian guy, and now her company's about to go under. She had it coming. I'm not that petty, I said, organizing the files on my desk. Besides, Thorne's problems aren't entirely Audrey's fault. Then whose fault is it? Don't tell me it's yours. Mike laughed. I didn't answer. In a way, he was right. If I had still been by her side, the health sync project wouldn't have ended this way. But it was my right to leave, and I shouldn't feel guilty for it. After work, I changed into a dark blue sport coat and went to pick up Sophia. She was wearing a stunning forest green dress that complemented her fair skin, with 2 small pearls at her earlobes that danced when she moved. You look beautiful tonight, I said, and I meant it. Sophia smiled and took my arm. You don't look so bad yourself. The concert was held in a historic, European-style concert hall. As we took our seats, the lights dimmed, and the orchestra began to play Dvorak's New World Symphony. Amid the soaring melodies, I suddenly remembered the last time I'd gone to a concert with Audrey. She had spent the entire performance answering work emails, oblivious to the music. Did you enjoy it? Sophia asked softly during the intermission. It was incredible, especially the second movement, I said, snapping back to the present. Thank you for inviting me. Actually, Sophia hesitated for a moment. There's something I wanted to tell you today. Her sudden serious expression made my heart skip a beat. What is it? Westwind Ventures want to hire you, she said, looking me directly in the eye. Not as a partner we've invested in, but as the head of our medical technology investment division. Double your current salary, plus significant equity. I was completely blindsided. Why me? Because of your dual background in technology and business, and more importantly, because of your eye for good projects. Sophia's voice was filled with genuine admiration. The Providence deal was just the beginning. I believe you can achieve even more on a bigger platform. I need to think about it, I said, truly stunned by the offer. Of course, Sophia nodded in understanding. But there's a personal reason why I'm hoping you'll accept. What's that? The lights dimmed again as the second half of the concert was about to begin. In the fading light, Sophia leaned close, her warm breath brushing against my cheek. Because I like you, and I want more chances to see you. Her words were like a drop of warm water on a calm lake, sending ripples through me. In the dim light, I gently took her hand. She didn't pull away. After the concert, we walked along the waterfront. The night air was cool, and Sophia leaned naturally against my side. I've been divorced, you know, I said suddenly. The media never dug that up, but I'm sure you know. I know, Sophia's voice was calm. A failed marriage doesn't define a person. In my eyes, you're a capable, responsible man. That's all that matters. Audrey and I, you don't have to tell me the details. Sophia stopped and turned to face me. Everyone has a past. What's important is the present and the future. Under the moonlight, her eyes shone like stars. I leaned in, unable to resist, and gently kissed her forehead. She didn't flinch, though a faint blush colored her cheeks. After dropping Sophia off, I drove home alone. While waiting at a red light, my phone rang. It was an unsaved number, but one that was painfully familiar. Audrey, I stared at the screen until the ringing stopped. A few seconds later, it rang again, then went silent. The third time, it rang for only a moment before stopping, as if the caller had abruptly changed their mind. Back home, I made a cup of coffee and checked my email. As expected, Thorne Industries had issued a formal announcement. The HealthSync project was terminated with a massive write-down. On financial forums, analysts were downgrading the stock, and rumors were swirling that banks were tightening their credit lines to the company. I clicked on a news photo. Audrey looked haggard at the press conference, while Julian stood behind her, his face a grim mask. One sharp-eyed commenter noted, "That VP looks like he's ready to bolt." Just as I was about to shut down my computer, my phone rang again. This time, it was Kevin Chun, the engineer from Mercy General. "Mr. Vance, sorry to bother you so late." His voice was urgent. "There's something I think you should know." "What is it?" "Someone from Thorne Industries came to our hospital today, trying to get access to the technical documents for your system. They claimed it was for competitive analysis." I frowned. Did the hospital agree? Of course not, but the guy was very aggressive and even hinted at offering a consulting fee. Kevin lowered his voice. "The strangest part is, he specifically asked to see the code comments that you personally wrote." I knew instantly who it was. What did this person look like? Mid-30s, well-dressed, wearing a Patek Philippe watch, spoke with a kind of smug arrogance. "Julian, it had to be him." "Thank you for telling me, Kevin," I said sincerely. "I'll handle this." Hanging up, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. Why was Julian investigating our system? Was it corporate espionage, or was he trying to figure out what went wrong with Audrey's company? After much hesitation, I sent Audrey a text. "Be careful with Julian. He tried to get our system's technical data from Mercy General today." I regretted at the moment I hit send. What business was it of mine? Audrey had made her choice. She could deal with the consequences. I was about to unsend the message, but it already showed as read. Audrey replied, "I know. Thank you." For simple words, but they sent a jolt through me. This wasn't the proud Audrey I knew. Another message followed. "Leo, I made a terrible mistake." I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. As I hesitated, the screen showed she was typing, but after several minutes, no new message appeared. In the end, I put my phone down without replying. Some mistakes, once made, cannot be undone. Like a shattered mirror, even if you glue it back together, the cracks will always be there. The next day was Saturday. I had planned to sleep in, but I was woken by a phone call. It was the head of security in my office building. "Mr. Vance, there's a woman causing a scene at the front entrance. She says she needs to see you and keeps shouting your name." "What does she look like?" I asked, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "Early 30s, very pretty, but she's drunk and crying." I was instantly wide awake. "I'll be right there." 20 minutes later, I arrived at the office. From a distance, I could see a familiar figure slumped on the front steps, her hair a mess, her makeup smeared. Audrey. She was clutching a bottle of wine, with two helpless security guards standing by. "Audrey." I approached, the strong smell of alcohol hitting me. "You're drunk." She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Leo." Her voice was so hoarse it was almost a whisper. "They won't let me in to see you." "Get up," I said, helping her to her feet and nodding to the guards. "I've got this." Audrey was unsteady, leaning heavily on me. I half-carried, half-dragged her to the parking garage and got her into my car. "Where do you live?" "I'll take you home," I said, buckling my seatbelt. Audrey shook her head and suddenly burst into tears. "I can't go home." Julian changed the locks. He threw all my things out. I then noticed two large suitcases crammed into the back seat. "What happened?" He betrayed me." Audrey sobbed. "He sold company secrets to a competitor. The board is going to fire me." It was all a setup. Through her broken, rambling story, a horrifying truth began to emerge. Julian's approach to Audrey had been a calculated plot from the beginning. He was backed by a competitor who wanted to acquire Thorne Industries, and the collapse of the HealthSync project had been orchestrated by him. I was so blind. Audrey covered her face. "I threw you away for him, and now I have nothing." I didn't know what to say. I could only hand her a tissue. "Leo." She suddenly grabbed my hand. "Can you forgive me? Can we start over?" Her hand was hot, her eyes a desperate mix of hope and despair. I gently pulled my hand away. "Audrey, you're drunk." I'll find a place for you to rest. I checked her into a nearby hotel and helped her with her bags. Audrey collapsed onto the bed, still muttering, I know you still love me. That investor, she's just a tool to get back at me, right? Audrey, I said, standing by the bed, my voice calm. Sophia and I are serious. What's past is past. Her tears started flowing again. But I regret it. I truly regret it. Seeing her in such pain, my chest tightened. This woman, once as proud as a swan, was now a broken mess, paying the price for her mistakes. Should I feel triumphant? I didn't. All I felt was a deep sense of exhaustion and sorrow. Get some sleep, I said, pouring her a glass of water and placing it on the nightstand. Things will be better tomorrow. Leaving the hotel, the sunlight felt harsh and blinding. My phone buzzed. It was an invitation to lunch from Sophia. I replied with a simple, okay, and leaned against my car, taking a deep breath. Life is full of cruel ironies. Just when you finally step out of the shadows, ready to embrace a new beginning, the past jumps out to remind you of the scars that haven't fully healed. But this time, I wouldn't turn back. The rehearsal for Nova Diagnostics' new product launch was in full swing, the stage lights so bright they made my eyes ache. On stage, the tech team was demonstrating our intelligent imaging diagnostic system for Zero, the world's first AI medical product capable of automatically generating treatment recommendations. Mr. Vance, the reporter from CNN, is here. She'd like a pre-launch interview. The head of PR whispered in my ear. I nodded, adjusted my suit, and walked toward the interview area. Along the way, employees greeted me with respectful smiles. The stay-at-home husband, who had been kicked out 3 years ago, was now a tech mogul, the media's pioneer of medical AI. Mr. Vance, can you speak to the groundbreaking significance of this product? The blonde reporter asked, getting straight to the point. Traditional AI diagnostics can only identify a condition. Our system, based on massive clinical datasets, can provide personalized treatment recommendations for doctors, I replied smoothly. This will dramatically improve diagnostic efficiency, especially in regions with limited medical resources. Is it true the FDA has granted it breakthrough device designation? It's currently under review, but I paused for effect. I can reveal that it has already received CE certification in Europe. The reporter's eyes lit up as she scribbled down the exclusive scoop. In the middle of the interview, my phone vibrated. The screen displayed a name I hadn't seen in a long time. Richard Thorne, Audrey's father. I declined the call and continued with the interview. Less than a minute later, my phone vibrated again. This time, it was a text. Leo, I need to speak with you urgently. Please call me back when you have a moment. Richard Thorne after the interview. I found a quiet corner and returned the call. Leo, thank you for calling me back. Richard's voice sounded much older than I remembered. How have you been lately? Busy, I said, cutting to the chase. Mr. Thorne, what can I do for you? There was a moment of silence on the other end. You've probably heard about the situation at Thorne Industries. The board passed a resolution yesterday to suspend Audrey's duties as CEO. I'm taking over temporarily. I gripped my phone tightly. I had expected this, but I didn't think it would happen so fast. That bastard Julian ran off with $20 million in liquid assets and leaked our core technology, Richard said, his voice seething with anger. He played Audrey for a fool. I didn't respond. It was Audrey who had insisted on being with Julian, even at the cost of our marriage. What was the point of saying all this now? Leo, I know this is a lot to ask. Richard's voice dropped. But can you help Thorne Industries? The HealthSync system has completely failed, and 3 major hospitals are suing us. You're the one who understands its system best. Mr. Thorne, I interrupted, I have a non-compete agreement that prevents me from working on similar projects. Besides, I have my own company to run now. I understand, Richard said quickly. You don't have to be directly involved. Just offer some advice. We'll pay you the highest possible consulting fees. I looked out the window. The sun reflected off the glass walls of the tech park, creating a blinding glare. It's not about the money. Does Audrey know you're calling me? She doesn't, Richard sighed. That girl's pride is too strong. But this company was her grandfather's life's work. I can't let it be destroyed. I'll have to think about it, I finally said. Hanging up, I stood there for a long time. My head told me to stay away from the mess at Thorne Industries, but deep down, the part of me that had once poured his soul into that company was stirring. "Mr. Vance, you're on in 5, my assistant reminded me. I took a deep breath, clearing my mind. This was my moment. I couldn't let the past interfere. The launch was a resounding success. When I demonstrated how the system accurately diagnosed a rare lung disease and provided a treatment plan, the audience erupted in applause. The flashes from the media section were a blinding storm. I saw Sophia in the back, giving me a thumbs up. At the celebration dinner afterward, amid the clinking glasses and congratulations, Sophia quietly tugged on my sleeve. "There's someone outside looking for you," she said softly. "It's Audrey. Security didn't let her in. She's waiting in the lobby." I put down my champagne glass. "I'll go see what she wants. Do you want me to come with you?" Sophia's eyes showed concern, but no jealousy or insecurity. "No, I'll be right back." In the lobby, Audrey stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her silhouette looking much thinner than before. She was wearing a simple white blouse and a black pencil skirt, a far cry from the designer power suits she used to favor. "Audrey," I said. She turned around. Her face was frighteningly pale, with dark shadows under her eyes. "Congratulations on the new product launch," she managed a weak smile. "I watched the live stream online. It was impressive." "Thanks. What can I do for you?" Audrey's fingers twisted together. "My father told me he called you." She paused. "Leo, I know I have no right to ask you for help, but..." "But what?" "But Thorne Industries is really finished." Her voice broke. "Over 3,000 employees, decades of brand history. I can't let it all be destroyed on my watch." I watched her quietly. The once proud Audrey was now standing before me, begging for help. Should I feel a sense of triumph? Strangely, I didn't. "Do you know what the real problem with Health Sync was?" I asked suddenly. "The technical architecture. The part that Julian replaced." "No," I shook my head. "The fundamental problem was that you were too quick to trust the wrong people and too unwilling to trust the people you should have." Audrey's eyes welled up. "I know I was wrong. Terribly wrong." She took a deep breath. "Leo, if you're willing to help, I'll agree to any condition. Reinstatement, shares, even getting back together." I took a step back. "Audrey, don't." "I know you still love me," she said, suddenly agitated. "For the past 3 years, every important decision the company made had your input. You helped me through every crisis. I was so stupid then, I didn't realize how important you were." "No, you realized it," I interrupted calmly. "You just took my contributions for granted." "Audrey, love isn't about endlessly taking without giving back." She froze, as if I had slapped her. "About Thorne Industries," I continued. "Out of professional ethics, I can give you some basic advice, but I won't be directly involved. As for everything else, we're over." "Is it because of that investor, Sophia Reed?" Audrey's voice became sharp. "What does she know about you? Does she know what brand of coffee you like? Does she know which side you sleep on? She knows how to respect my profession and appreciate my abilities." "That's enough," I said calmly. Audrey was about to say more when the elevator doors opened and Sophia walked out. She saw us, hesitated for a moment, then approached. "Sorry to interrupt." Sophia smiled gracefully. "Leo, the partners from Morgan Stanley are leaving. They wanted to say goodbye." Audrey's gaze lingered on Sophia for a moment, then shifted back to me. "You two are together?" "Yes," I didn't deny it. Sophia tactfully stepped aside. Audrey looked as if she'd been stabbed in the chest, but she quickly composed herself, her face settling into a professional smile. "Congratulations, Ms. Reed is an excellent woman." "Audrey," I suddenly felt a pang of pity. "About Thorne, I can spare an hour tomorrow morning to give you some advice." "That won't be necessary," she said, straightening her back, transforming back into the proud CEO. "I won't disturb your celebration. Goodbye, Leo." She turned and left, her steps steady, her posture perfect. But I knew that the moment she walked out that door, she would fall apart. Sophia came over and gently took my hand. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I nodded. "Let's go back." Returning to the party, surrounded by champagne and laughter, my thoughts drifted. Audrey's appearance was like a mirror, showing me just how far I had come. From a stay-at-home husband kicked out of his home to the leader of a tech company. It had been a difficult journey, but every step had been solid. After the party, Sophia and I were the last to leave. The night air was cool, and she leaned against my shoulder. "When Audrey came to find you today, I was actually a little jealous, Sophia said suddenly. I looked at her, surprised. You? Jealous? MHM, she nodded. It's not that I don't trust you, but I saw the way she looked at you. That wasn't an ex-wife looking at her ex-husband. That was a woman looking at the man she deeply loved and lost. I didn't know how to respond, so I just held her hand tighter. But Sophia looked up, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight. I know your value better than she does, so I'm not worried. After dropping Sophia off, I drove home alone. While waiting at a red light, my phone lit up with a news alert. Breaking. Thorne Industries announces trading halt, suspected major asset restructuring. The accompanying photo showed a crowd of reporters gathered in front of the Thorne Industries building. I swiped the notification away. Audrey must be in over her head right now, but this was no longer my battle to fight. Back home, showered and ready for bed, I lay staring at the ceiling. My phone rang again. It was Richard Thorne. Leo, the board has decided to accept the acquisition offer from Crestview Group. Audrey is strongly against it, but it's a done deal. Thank you for everything you once did for Thorne Industries. I put the phone down and turned off the light. In the darkness, memories from the past 3 years flashed before my eyes like a movie. The late nights helping Audrey revise business plans, the afternoons massaging her temples to ease her stress, the mornings handing her throat lozenges before a big speech. The tender moments I thought I had buried were still there. But now I had a new life, a new career, and a new love. No matter how good the past was, it was still the past. The next morning, I had just arrived at the office when Mike burst in. Leo, big news. Thorne Industries has been acquired. I know, I said calmly. There's more, Mike said excitedly. Audrey resigned on the spot at the board meeting and exposed evidence of Julian colluding with the acquiring company. The internet is exploding. I opened my laptop. Sure enough, hashtag Thorne Industries scandal and hashtag Audrey Thorne resigns were trending. A secretly recorded video was going viral. Audrey in the boardroom, furiously accusing the directors of being short-sighted, revealing how Julian had orchestrated the crisis to facilitate a lowball acquisition. At the end of the video, she slapped her employee badge on the table and walked out without looking back. The proud Audrey would rather go down in flames than compromise. As I was lost in thought, there was a knock on my door. My secretary peeked in. Mr. Vance, there's a delivery for you. It requires a personal signature. I went downstairs to find a courier with a small package. The sender line was blank, but the handwriting was familiar. I opened it. Inside was a familiar USB drive, the one I had left behind when I moved out, containing all the technical analysis and market forecasts I had done for the HealthSync project. Attached to it was a sticky note, returning this to its rightful owner. I wish you well. Hey, I rubbed the small metal drive, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Was this a farewell, or had she finally understood something? Back in my office, I locked the USB drive in the deepest part of my desk drawer. No matter how much Audrey regretted her choices now, some paths, once taken, could not be retraced. Like her and me, we had missed our chance. It was the final day of Nova Diagnostics' IPO roadshow. I stood in a conference hall at the Four Seasons, fielding questions from 24 top-tier investors. We had been on the road for 3 months, hitting 7 cities and holding 15 presentations. Tomorrow was the final pricing day. Mr. Vance, what is your company's core technological barrier to entry? A silver-haired investor asked. It lies in our dynamic learning algorithm, I said, clicking the remote to display a technical diagram. Traditional AI systems require periodic model updates. Our system, however, learns and evolves in real time from clinical data with an accuracy that automatically improves by 3 to 5% each quarter. The investors scribbled notes. Just then, the conference room door opened quietly, and my assistant, Sarah, tiptoed in, a strange look on her face. Mr. Vance, there's a Ms. Thorne at the front desk. She says it's urgent, and she has to see you. I frowned. Tell her I'm in a meeting. I'll contact her when I'm done. Sarah hesitated. She doesn't look well. She said she'll wait for as long as it takes. I maintained my professional expression and continued answering questions, but my mind was elsewhere. What did Audrey want? The acquisition of Thorne Industries was old news by now. After the roadshow, I was mobbed by investors. It was 2 hours before I could finally break away. Exhausted, I loosened my tie and walked out of the conference room. In a corner of the hotel lobby, a familiar figure was curled up on a sofa. Audrey was wearing a wrinkled beige trench coat, her hair haphazardly tied back. A long cold cup of coffee sat on the table in front of her. When she saw me, she shot to her feet, her eyes so red and swollen it looked like she had been crying all night. "Leo." Her voice was a hoarse whisper. I walked closer, catching the faint smell of alcohol. "Have you been drinking?" "A little." "I couldn't sleep." She managed a brittle smile. Can we talk somewhere private? Just for 10 minutes. Seeing her so fragile, I sighed. "I have a room upstairs. We could talk there." In the elevator, we stood in silence. Audrey gripped the handrail, her knuckles white. Once in a room, I poured her a glass of water. Her hand trembled so much she nearly spilled it. "What's so urgent?" I asked, sitting in the chair opposite her, keeping my distance. Audrey stared down at the glass, taking a long time to speak. I'm bankrupt." I raised an eyebrow. I knew her finances would take a hit after the acquisition, but I hadn't expected bankruptcy. "Julian, that monster." Her voice began to shake. "He used my name to pledge my shares as collateral, cashed them all out, and transferred all the money from our joint accounts." "Have you called the police?" "I did, but he's already left the country." Audrey looked up, tears streaming silently down her face. "Now the bank is foreclosing on my house, my car. Even my father's retirement savings are gone." My chest tightened. I had seen Audrey confident and powerful. I had seen her cold and aloof, but this broken, desperate woman was a stranger to me. "Leo, I have nowhere else to turn." She suddenly slid off the sofa and knelt before me. "Please, help me." "Audrey." I rushed to pull her up, but she collapsed like a rag doll, sobbing uncontrollably. "I know I deserve this. I know I was a fool. But please, for old time's sake." She clutched at my pant leg, crying like a lost child. "I'll do anything. I'll give up everything. We can start over." I knelt and pulled her forcefully to her feet. "Get a grip. Stop this. I can't live without you." She looked up, her makeup completely ruined. "It's only in these last 3 years that I've understood. Every turning point for the company was because of you. Every crisis was solved by you quietly in the background. I was so blind. An idiot." Her words were like a knife twisting in my gut. All the sacrifices she had ignored, all the help she had taken for granted, were finally being acknowledged. But it was too late. "Audrey, listen to me," I said, helping her back onto the sofa, my voice as steady as I could make it. "I can lend you money to get you through this. I can help you find a lawyer to go after what you've lost. But as for everything else, we're finished." "No." She grabbed my hand fiercely. "It's not over. You still love me, don't you? That investor. You're just using her to make me jealous, right?" I gently pulled my hand free. "Sophia and I are serious. Next week, we're going to the U.S. together to set up the new branch office." Audrey's face went white. You're leaving. Temporarily. The company is listing on the NASDAQ. I need to be there for a while. Take me with you." She grew agitated again. "I can start from scratch. I'll be your assistant, your secretary, anything. I can't lose you again." "Audrey." I raised my voice. "Snap out of it. This isn't you. Where's the proud, resilient Audrey I used to know?" She froze, a tear clinging to her eyelash. "Thorne Industries is gone, but you're still here. You're still capable." I continued. "Pull yourself together and start over. That's the Audrey I know. Without you, I can't," she mumbled. "You can," I said, looking at her firmly. "When you took over Thorne Industries 3 years ago, everyone said you'd fail, but you proved them wrong. This is just another chance to do it again." She stared at me, the frantic energy in her eyes slowly fading, replaced by a profound sadness. You really don't love me anymore." I was silent for a moment, then chose to be honest. "I did love you with everything I had, but some wounds, once inflicted, can't be healed." Audrey closed her eyes, 2 tears tracing paths down her cheeks. When she opened them again, there was a frightening calm in her gaze. "I understand." She stood up unsteadily, straightened her clothes and hair, then took an envelope from her purse and placed it on the coffee table. "This is the last of my pride. I will pay back any money I borrow from you. The IOU and a repayment plan are inside." I nodded, not refusing. This was the Audrey I remembered, proud, even in ruin. "Leo," she said, her back to me as she reached the door. If I hadn't asked for a divorce 3 years ago, where would we be now? There are no what-ifs in life, I answered softly. She gave a slight nod, opened the door, and left without looking back. I stood there for a long time before picking up the envelope. Inside, along with a neatly written IOU, was a photograph, a picture of us in the Maldives on our first anniversary. On the back, in small script, were the words, "Thank you for loving me once." A lump formed in my throat. I put the photo back in the envelope and tucked it into the bottom of my suitcase. That marriage, with all its sweet and bitter memories, needed to be sealed away. My phone rang. It was Sophia. "How was the roadshow?" "I just finished a meeting with the FDA. I have good news." "It went well," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "What's the news?" "They've decided to put your system on the breakthrough device fast-track approval list. That will cut down the process by at least 6 months. Sophia's voice was full of excitement. "Oh, and Richard Thorne contacted me today." My body tensed. What did he want? He wanted to invest in our U.S. branch. The terms were very generous. Sophia paused. I didn't accept on the spot. I told him I needed to discuss it with you. "Turn him down," I said without hesitation. "I don't want any more ties to the Thorne family." "I thought you'd say that," Sophia said gently. "I've already politely declined. But he asked me to pass on a message to you." "What?" "That girl knows she was wrong. Give her a chance to survive." I gripped the phone, my chest tight. Richard Thorne was a shrewd businessman, but he was also a loving father. He probably thought I was secretly blocking other investors from helping Audrey. "Leo, are you still there?" Sophia's voice brought me back. "I'm here." I took a deep breath. "After the pricing tomorrow, I'm flying to New York. How are things on your end?" "Everything's ready." Her voice was bright with a smile. "I've even made a reservation at that Italian restaurant you like." Hanging up, I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere in that sea of light, Audrey was either licking her wounds or planning her comeback. But that was no longer my concern. The next morning, my phone was flooded with news alerts. Former Thorne Industries CEO Audrey Thorne announces launch of personal brand. A rebound from rock bottom. Audrey Thorne secures support from mystery investor. Audrey Thorne and Julian Croft officially in engagement. Vows to pursue legal action for all financial losses. I skimmed the articles. It seemed Audrey was starting over with a small, niche skincare brand. An anonymous investor had provided the seed money. Industry analysts were skeptical, but they admired her resilience. She was finally finding her footing again. I smiled faintly and closed the news app. The pricing day went smoothly. Nova Diagnostics priced at the top of its range, with a staggering valuation of $5 billion. At the celebration party that night, surrounded by champagne, flowers, and congratulations, Mike and I were tossed into the air by our team. Everyone was ecstatic. "Leo," Mike slung an arm around my shoulder, slurring slightly. "From a dumped stay-at-home husband to a public company CEO, this is the ultimate comeback story. The media is going to have a field day with this tomorrow." I smiled and clinked my glass with his, feeling surprisingly calm. This journey was less about proving a point and more about finding my true self. After the party, I went back to my hotel to pack. I was flying to New York tomorrow to start a new chapter. As I was packing, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw an unexpected visitor, Richard Thorne. "Sorry to bother you so late," he said, standing in the doorway, looking weary despite his tailored suit. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, then stepped aside to let him in. Richard looked around the room, his gaze landing on my half-packed suitcase. "Leaving? First flight in the morning." I heard. "Nova Diagnostics valued at $5 billion, he said with a wry smile. 3 years ago, everyone said you weren't good enough for Audrey. Now, it's the other way around." "Mr. Thorne, if you're here to talk about that." "No, I'm here to thank you," Richard interrupted. "Audrey told me you were the one who woke her up. That skincare brand is small, but she's working on it with a passion I haven't seen in years." I was surprised. The anonymous investor was you. "Not me." Richard shook his head. "It was an investor named Sophia Reed." My eyes widened. "Sophia." She contacted Audrey, said she saw potential in her business sense and execution, and was willing to invest in her new project. Richard looked at me meaningfully. "She didn't tell you?" I shook my head, a warm feeling spreading through my chest. This was why I loved Sophia. She was strong without being domineering, smart without being manipulative, and kind without being a pushover. Leo, Richard's tone turned serious. Back then, I was against Audrey divorcing you. Not because you weren't good enough, but because I know my daughter. She's too proud, too self-centered. I knew she was bound to fall. And you were the most supportive and patient person I had ever seen. I didn't know what to say, so I remained silent. It's too late for all that now, he said, standing up. I wish you a successful trip to the States. As for Audrey, if you get a chance, please pass on a message to Ms. Reed. Tell her the Thorne family owes her one. After he left, I immediately called Sophia. I knew Richard would go to you, she laughed. Yes, it was me. I invested in Audrey. It wasn't out of pity, it was a business decision. Her instincts in the beauty industry are genuinely sharp. You didn't have to do that. I know. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. But I wanted you to be able to let go of the past completely, to move forward without any baggage. And I believe Audrey has what it takes to make a comeback. I gripped the phone, the emotions swelling in my chest, almost too much to bear. Sophia, you don't have to say anything, she interrupted softly. I'll see you at the airport tomorrow. Good night, Leo. Hanging up, I stood by the window, looking out at the city's nightscape. 3 years ago, I was a discarded husband. 3 years later, I was about to take my public company to the international stage. And Audrey, the once invincible CEO, was starting her own journey of rebirth. Fate is a funny thing. Sometimes it feels like you've come full circle, but you've actually spiraled up to a new level. Tomorrow, a new life. Inside the suite at the Four Seasons in New York, morning light streamed through the windows, falling on a copy of the Wall Street Journal by the bed. As I finished tying my tie, a small headline in the corner of the front page caught my eye. The story behind a Chinese tech mogul, from invisible strategist to industry leader. The subheadline made my hands freeze. Exclusive. How Nova Diagnostics CEO Leo Vance grew from the mastermind behind his ex-wife's company into a medical AI pioneer. I snatched up the paper and scanned the article. The reporter had somehow dug up details from my time at Thorne Industries. How I'd rewritten business plans, introduced key investors, and even anonymously solved technical crises. The piece quoted several former Thorne employees who confirmed that I was the shadow behind many of the company's biggest successes. According to a former Thorne executive who wished to remain anonymous, a series of disastrous decisions made by Audrey Thorne after Leo Vance's departure directly led to the company's decline. We all wondered at the time why Ms. Thorne had suddenly changed so much, the executive stated. Now we see it was because she had lost the husband who was quietly holding everything together. The newspaper slipped from my fingers. These were parts of my past I had never spoken of, now laid bare for the world to see. Worse, it made Audrey look like an incompetent fraud and me like some long-suffering saint. The truth was far more complicated. My phone vibrated. A text from Sophia. Saw the article. Don't worry, I've already got the PR team working on a response. Meet you downstairs in 30. I texted back a simple, okay, and continued gathering my documents. Today was our second formal meeting with the FDA. I couldn't let this tabloid trash distract me. In the lobby, Sophia was already waiting. She wore a dark blue power suit, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, holding a tablet and a cup of coffee. For you, she said, handing me the coffee. Black, no sugar. How did you know? I asked, taking the cup. The temperature was perfect. Observation, she smiled slightly. Every time a waiter asks if you want cream or sugar, you say no. That feeling of being closely, carefully seen warmed me. With Audrey, she never remembered how I took my coffee. It was always me who knew all her preferences by heart. About the article, Sophia switched into business mode. I did some digging. The reporter got his information from the former VP of technology at Thorne, the one Julian Croft fired. He's been holding a grudge. Will it affect us? Short term, we'll have to deal with some media headaches. Long term, it's actually good for us, Sophia analyzed. People love a rags-to-riches story, and they love an underdog hero who proves everyone wrong. However, she hesitated. It's going to be very hard on Audrey. I sipped my coffee in silence. Though Audrey had hurt me, I never wanted to see her publicly humiliated. I have an idea, Sophia said suddenly. You have that Forbes interview next week. We can use it to address this story head-on. but frame it as how you applied the lessons from Thorne Industries to build Nova Diagnostics, rather than blaming Audrey. I finished her sentence. Good idea. Sophia nodded in approval. It's both honest and dignified. She always found the perfect balance. Never disingenuous, never cruel. That wisdom was far more attractive than mere beauty. The FDA meeting went exceptionally well. Our clinical data was highly praised by the review panel, with the lead scientist calling our product the most robust AI medical technology they had seen in years. As we left the building, Sophia excitedly squeezed my hand. You looked incredible up there explaining the technical roadmap. Her eyes were shining. Those reviewers were hanging on your every word. That's because you were right beside me, adding the market analysis. I smiled, squeezing her hand back. We make a good team. Just a good team? She winked playfully. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was an unknown number from China. Mr. Leo Vance? A man's voice asked in Mandarin. This is a reporter from Kaijing Weekly. I'd like to do a follow-up interview regarding today's Wall Street Journal story about you and Thorne Industries. I'm sorry, I'm not available for interviews right now, I said, hanging up. Immediately, another call came through. For the next few hours, my phone was bombarded by media outlets. I had to turn it off and use Sophia's to contact my office. It seems the article's impact is bigger than we thought, Sophia said, frowning at the news alerts scrolling across her tablet. It's already been picked up by Chinese media. She handed me the tablet. The headline on a major Chinese financial news site read, "The ex-husband's revenge, the forgotten invisible strategist behind the fall of Thorne Industries." The article juxtaposed my wedding photo with Audrey against a recent picture of me, creating a stark, dramatic contrast. The comment section was a war zone. People were calling Audrey blind, praising me as a real man, and filling the page with malicious speculation and memes. Audrey must be going through hell right now, I said, putting the tablet down, a knot in my stomach. Sophia gave me a thoughtful look. Still care about her? Not in that way. I shook my head. I didn't want to win like this. Sophia reached out and smoothed the frown from my brow. I understand, but some truths can't be hidden forever. That evening, back at the hotel, I turned my phone back on and was greeted by a message from Mike. Leo, it's chaos back home. Audrey is getting destroyed online. People are even review bombing her new skincare shop. He included a link. Former Thorne CEO Audrey Thorne refuses to comment on ex-husband's rise. New venture faces public boycott. I was about to close the page when a small inset photo caught my eye. It showed Audrey being cornered by reporters outside a coffee shop, looking pale, but holding her head high. In the corner of the photo, I noticed a small bottle in her hand. It was a skincare sample, the bottle elegantly simple, with the label Rebirth written on it. This must be her new brand. For some reason, I felt a strange urge to try it. The next day, the Forbes interview proceeded as scheduled. The reporter, Lisa Chong, was a sharp Chinese-American journalist whose questions were pointed but fair. Mr. Vance, regarding the recent media storm about your role in your ex-wife's company, is there anything you'd like to clarify? Following the plan Sophia and I had made, I answered, my time at Thorne Industries provided me with invaluable experience, which was instrumental in the development of Nova Diagnostics. But the success or failure of a company is never determined by a single person. Thorne had an excellent team. The market conditions just changed too rapidly. You seem reluctant to criticize your ex-wife. There are no absolute rights or wrongs in business decisions, I said calmly. My marriage to Ms. Thorne is over, but I will always be grateful for the lessons I learned during that time. Lisa noted my words thoughtfully. Sources say Ms. Thorne's new startup has been severely impacted by this wave of public opinion. Do you have any comment on that? This was a question I hadn't anticipated. Under the table, Sophia gently tapped my foot, a signal to be careful. I am well aware of Ms. Thorne's capabilities and resilience. I chose my words carefully. I have no doubt she will overcome this difficult period. As for the public's reaction, I cannot control it, but I hope people can learn to separate business from private life. After the interview, Lisa told me privately, Mr. Vance, your grace is admirable. I've interviewed too many entrepreneurs who trash their former partners after becoming successful. You're a rare exception. Back in the car, Sophia handed me a file. Take a look at this. It was a market analysis report on the growth potential of high-end skincare in China, with a focus on a new brand called Rebirth. "This is Audrey's new project," Sophia said, pointing to a chart. "The product positioning is very precise, and the formula is innovative." Before this whole media mess, it was getting excellent reviews in its initial test market. I read the report carefully, forced to admit that Audrey's business acumen was as sharp as ever. She had targeted the niche market of post-cosmetic procedure skin repair, with a concept of technology plus nature that was perfectly aligned with current trends. "Are you thinking of investing?" I asked, closing the file. "I'm already in talks," Sophia said, starting the car, not under the Westwind Ventures name, but through an affiliated company to avoid media speculation. I turned to look at her. "Why are you doing this?" Sophia looked straight ahead. 3 reasons. First, it's a genuinely good project. Second, I don't want your success to be built on Audrey's suffering. And third, she finally turned to me, her gaze soft. "I know there's still a part of you that's tied to her, and I want to help you let go completely." A lump formed in my throat, and I couldn't speak. "Thank you," was all I could manage, but I hoped she understood the depth of emotion behind those 2 words. 3 weeks later, Diagnostics officially listed on the Nasdaq. The stock opened 35% above its IPO price, pushing the company's valuation past $7 billion. Mike and I stood on the trading floor, surrounded by our cheering team and investors, the camera flashes as bright as day. In the crowd, I saw Sophia recording the moment on her phone, tears of pride shining in her eyes. In that instant, I realized with absolute clarity that this woman, who had believed in me at my lowest and celebrated with me at my peak, was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. At the celebratory dinner that night, amidst the champagne and congratulations, I discreetly slipped a small box into Sophia's hand. "Open it when you get back to the hotel," I whispered in her ear. She felt the box, and her eyes widened. "Leo, is this?" "It's not a proposal," I clarified with a smile. "At least, not yet. It's a promise." After the party, we walked hand in hand through the New York night. Sophia couldn't wait and opened the box right there on the street. Inside was a pair of elegant cufflinks, a matching set to the ones I was wearing. "I want to see a part of you with me every day," I explained, "just as you've become a part of my life." Sophia's eyes welled up. "This is the most thoughtful gift I've ever received." When we returned to the hotel, the concierge stopped me. "Mr. Vance, a package for you, mailed from China." It was a small box with no return address. Inside was a bottle of Rebirth skincare serum and a card. "Congratulations on the IPO." Hey, no extra words, just Audrey's typical style. I opened the bottle. A faint scent of cedarwood mixed with a hint of nearly drifted out. The fragrance inexplicably reminded me of the first time I met Audrey, of the cool confidence she exuded. "She has good taste," Sophia said, picking up the bottle and scanning the ingredient list. "This combination of active ingredients is very innovative. It should be quite effective. Want to try it?" I offered. "Sure," Sophia said, pumping a small amount onto the back of her hand. It absorbs quickly, not sticky at all." Watching Sophia professionally evaluate the product, I felt a sense of release. Audrey would get back on her feet in her own way, and Sophia and we had our own path to walk. The next morning at breakfast, Mike forwarded me a link to a newly published interview. Rebirth founder Audrey Thorne responded for the first time to ex-husband's story. He deserves all his success. "What did she say?" Sophia asked curiously. I skimmed the article. Basically, that the media misinterpreted things, that our marital problems were complex and not what the public imagined. She thanked me for my help at Thorne and admitted she was too young and didn't know how to appreciate the people closest to her. "A very classy response," Sophia commented. "It seems she's getting back on track." I put down my phone and looked out the window. The New York sun was bright, shining down on the bustling streets, on everyone rushing toward their own futures. My future was right here, sitting beside this woman who understood my worth. "What's the plan for today?" Sophia asked, munching on a piece of toast. "First, a walk in Central Park, and then—" I took her hand. "I want to take you to meet someone." "Ooh, my old mentor from Columbia University. He's very important to me, and I want him to meet you." Sophia's eyes lit up. She understood the significance of the gesture. I was bringing her into every important part of my life. The past was truly past. A rebirth was just beginning. Hashtag 10. The celebration for the first anniversary of Nova Diagnostics IPO was held on the top floor of a skyscraper overlooking the Huangpu River. I stood by the window, gazing at the glittering Shanghai skyline, my champagne flute reflecting the city lights. A year ago, I was a recently divorced man struggling to find his footing. Now, our company's market cap had surpassed 10 billion. I was named Tech Leader of the Year, and my life had completely turned around. Mr. Vance, your speech begins in 5 minutes, my assistant whispered. I nodded, adjusting the collar of my suit. Sophia had picked out this custom-made navy suit, saying the color made me look both professional and approachable. Nervous, Sophia appeared beside me, wearing a stunning silver-gray gown, her hair in an elegant updo, diamonds glittering at her ears. Not when you're here, I said, gently taking her hand. Her grip was firm and reassuring. Over the past year, Sophia had become not just my fiancée, but my most trusted business partner. Her connections had opened up the European market for us, and her investment insights had saved us from several potential risks. More importantly, she taught me that true love isn't about one-sided sacrifice, but about mutual growth and achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first anniversary celebration of Nova Diagnostics. The MC's voice filled the hall. I walked onto the stage. The spotlight was on me, the audience filled with hundreds of investors, partners, and journalists. I knew the speech by heart. The success of this past year belongs to every single member of the Nova Diagnostics team, I said, my gaze sweeping across the faces in the crowd, lingering for an extra second on Sophia. And I especially want to thank those who believed in me when I was at my lowest. As applause filled the room, I noticed a familiar figure in the front row, Audrey. She was dressed in a simple black suit, her makeup understated, listening intently to my speech. This was the first time we had seen each other in a public setting since the divorce. After the speech, as guests mingled, I was chatting with a group of investors when I saw Audrey walking toward me. That was a great speech, she said, stopping a respectful distance away, her voice calm. Congratulations, Leo. Thank you. I'm surprised to see you here, I admitted. The PR department had handled the guest list. Ms. Reed invited me, Audrey said, her gaze shifting past me to Sophia, who was approaching. Rebirth is now one of Nova Diagnostics' partners. It finally clicked. The skincare brand that Sophia had been quietly funding through an affiliate had grown successful enough to partner with us. Ms. Thorne's products are perfect for our employee wellness program, Sophia said, naturally linking her arm through mine. Natural ingredients, gentle repair, a lifesaver for our hard-working staff. Audrey smiled faintly. You're too kind. It's an honor for us to partner with Nova. Up close, Audrey looked a bit more worn than she had a year ago, with fine lines around her eyes, but her entire demeanor was softer. The imperious CEO was gone, replaced by a woman who had weathered storms and emerged stronger. I hear you two are getting engaged? Audrey asked suddenly. Sophia looked at me, and I nodded. Next month. Congratulations. Audrey's voice was soft but sincere. You two are very well suited. After a brief, comfortable silence, Audrey politely excused herself. Watching her walk away, I felt no turmoil, only a quiet sense of peace. She's changed a lot, Sophia said softly. Yeah, she's not so sharp. Sophia finished my thought. I was going to say lonely, I said, turning to Sophia. The old Audrey always seemed alone, even in a crowd. Sophia looked thoughtful. Adversity changes a person. Rebirth had a rough start, but she pulled through. I was surprised by how well Sophia seemed to know her. You two are in contact often. Occasionally, Sophia smiled. We have some business dealings, and we chat sometimes. She's a smart woman. Just what? She just learned her lessons a little too late. Sophia squeezed my hand gently. Come on, Chairman Wang is waiting for us. The celebration ended late. Back at home, I took off my suit and found a small note in the pocket. It was in Audrey's familiar handwriting. Leo, my interview with Financial Figures magazine comes out next week. I mentioned you. I hope it doesn't cause you any trouble. Wishing you happiness. Hey, I placed a note on my desk and went to take a shower. When I came out, Sophia was sitting on the bed, looking at the note. "You don't mind, do you?" she asked, holding it up. "Of course not. Do you want to see the interview? I know the editor. I can get an advance copy." I hesitated, then shook my head. "No, that's not necessary." Sophia put the note back on the desk. "You're not curious what she said?" "I am, but there's no need to go out of my way to read it," I said, sitting beside her. "Let the past be the past." Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder. "Sometimes I wonder, if you two hadn't gotten divorced, what would you be like now?" "Probably still the invisible strategist at Thorne Industries," I said jokingly, then gave it a more serious thought. "And I wouldn't be happy. That feeling of being ignored, of being undervalued. It would have destroyed our relationship eventually. So the divorce was a good thing?" "Looking at the outcome, yes," I said, putting my arm around her. "It led me to you, and it gave Audrey a chance to find herself again." Sophia looked up at me. "You know, the thing I admire most about you is that you never resent her." "Resentment takes too much energy," I said, kissing her forehead. "Life is too short. It's better to spend that time on people who are worth it. Like you, I thought." I didn't say the words, but Sophia seemed to hear them anyway, because she kissed me back, a kiss that was both tender and sure. A week later, waiting in the airport lounge for a flight to San Francisco, I happened to see that issue of Financial Figures. Audrey's interview was the cover story for the business section, with the headline, "Rebirth After the Fall. Rebirth Founder Audrey Thorne on Failure and Growth." Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. The first half of the article detailed how she had learned from the failure of Thorne Industries and started her new venture. The second half was more personal. One paragraph was highlighted. "My biggest mistake was underestimating the value of the people closest to me. I once believed success was all about my own talent and decisions. I only realized later that behind all the most critical turning points, there was someone quietly supporting me. The divorce was the most painful, but also the most necessary lesson of my life. It forced me to confront my own arrogance and prejudice." She didn't mention me by name, but anyone could read between the lines. I closed the magazine, my feelings a complicated mix. If only Audrey had understood this sooner, would our story have been different? But there are no what-ifs in life. Some lessons can only be learned through loss. As the plane took off, I looked out at the receding city skyline and thought of that day at City Hall. Audrey had told me, "Julian has a decade of investment experience on Wall Street. His involvement will bring an international perspective to Thorne Industries." The irony was that this Wall Street elite had nearly destroyed her company, while I, the man she had discarded, was the one who had truly taken a company international. Nova Diagnostics now had partnerships with top medical institutions across the US and Europe. Fate has a strange sense of humor. A year later, at our engagement party, the garden was bathed in sunlight. Sophia, in a simple white dress, walked toward me through a crowd of our friends and family. Just before we exchanged rings, my phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. "I wish you both a lifetime of happiness. You deserve all of it." I looked at Sophia, who was adjusting her veil, then back at the message. I calmly deleted it. That chapter was closed. A new one was beginning. "Ready?" Sophia asked, reaching for my hand, the sunlight dancing in her smile. I took her hand, our fingers intertwining. "I'm ready." In that moment, I finally understood. The most precious thing in life isn't the success you find in the spotlight, but the person you find who is willing to share in all of it, the triumphs and the trials. And that person was standing right in front of me, her eyes holding all the sunshine of a perfect summer day.